Welcome, Jeannie, to the Hormone Shift Show. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I think our guests are going to have a wonderful time listening to our conversation.
Leslie, thank you so much for having me, first of all. I didn't start off as a money anything. I started off as a career gal, and then both my parents got sick with Alzheimer's and then they passed away. And that altered not only my money brain, but it also altered my career. And now I'm a serial entrepreneur, which is something if you would have asked me before my parents got sick, I would have said, you're kidding. I don't think I could ever do that. Now I'm like, seriously, you just start here, you go there, you do this.
Exactly.
I got started because of betrayal and financial shame.
Mm.
So what happened is that my parents, as I mentioned, had passed away. But it was with my mother. They were divorced. She was the last one to go, and she had unfortunately a family member that was not honest with her, let alone us. And they, the technical term is financially exploited her estate, and that money was not spent on her care.
Oof.
And so I was going through my own grieving process, and then it was like when she finally passed, there was a whole lot of drama. We went to court, we lost. And what happened is that I was still carrying around some financial shame, but also I had a lot of just like what happened in our family, that we were sort of bamboozled and, gaslit and all this other kind of stuff that can happen in any type of financial arrangement, personal or professional. And I just really went down a road within myself of like, I never want to be betrayed like this again. And I was like, what else could I do? So that was like kind of my question. That was like my question when we were in litigation and I was still grieving, like, what can I do? So I'll never have to deal with this again because this is unbelievable. And I walked into my dance studio one day and there on the wall was this flyer for a dance and money. And I don't remember the title, but I went, ooh, I should go. And this is before the pandemic. And I went there and I met my very first emotional behavioral money coach. And after a year of personal and professional development, I said, I think I should do this. And I did. And here I am. So that's me in a quick nutshell.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and I think that what you are talking about, I think even though like your circumstances are certainly unique, like both parents having Alzheimer's, going through the grief process, and they probably, I think from our conversation, I understood that they passed away within years of each other,
Very much so. It
correct?
was like literally a
Yeah,
17-year difference.
17 years between them. One passed and then 17 years later another one passed. It's still like enough for you to like kind of get your bearings and then have to go through it again. So it's a lot. It's a lot on a human being. But also that you're like, what can I do? Like you're very proactive, you know. For the audience who are listening in, if you're listening in, like you have to get to know somebody like Jeannie because Jeannie is like, I'm gonna figure it out. She is like one of these types of people that I love. Um, but you said, "What can I do?" And the reason why I say that because I know I would have been like, "What did I do wrong? Like,
Well, that was
what
part of
did
the
I
shame.
do?" Yeah, like, what did I do to deserve it? I can imagine, like, everything that you were going through. And this conversation is not going to be about, financial bamboozlement and all of that, but it's, like, taking responsibility for our finances. And so, like, I would have been, like, very, like, mea culpa. So, tell me how you got over that.
So you're never given anything in life that is easy to forgive. That is sort of the great lesson of grief and betrayal that I've learned. Because literally, when I would tell the story about what was going on when we were in litigation, when my mother was dying, blah, 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 all that stuff, nobody had any words of wisdom. Nobody had any words of comfort. Nobody could tell me anything. They were just like, I can't imagine, or I don't know, or sorry. And that's not helpful. That is the least helpful thing you can do is like, well, I don't know. But we are a little, I think, self-absorbed sometimes, especially when stuff is sort of like out of the bucket. Like we have no idea what that is. So forgiveness is really the way through. And when you have debt, you have people you have not forgiven. I know somebody wants to like reach through the little podcast speaker right now and strangle me because they don't want to hear that because I want to tell you what they did. And what they did does not change the fact that you can forgive. The forgiveness is for you. It's not about what they did. It's about what you're going to do next, which is you're going to let this go for you. And if it takes you a year, fine. If it takes you 2 days, great. If you can do it in 30 seconds, my gosh, we all need your master class right now. But it's a decision to forgive. It's a decision to let go. I often say to myself, this was like the little mantra thing that I used to say to myself because I was like, relaxing into the unknown is a luxury I can afford because I did not know what was going to happen next. And a lot of times, what did happen next was the worst. But I mean, this is what it was. I mean, and this is also part of the forgiveness piece. Like my mother made many, many decisions before I ever was born. And then she made many more decisions after she got divorced from my dad. And then there were many, many decisions not made with me present. So I did not know a lot of this stuff. And when I got to that point, I was like, oh yeah, I guess this isn't me. This isn't something I have to fix or control. I will learn this lesson and I will tell anybody about the financial exploitation that could possibly occur within your own family because I know families, I know how they work, and I know how money can be corrupt in your brain and then really just throw you for a loop. There's a lot of what I would call very nice people out there who have done things with money they should not have done. And I'm not even talking about criminal stuff. I'm just talking about stuff within the family.
And you mentioned to me, if that's okay that I mentioned it, if not, we'll cut it out, but that it was a family member,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Yeah. And I think that this is such a relevant topic that we're going to talk about on the podcast because we are at the age where our parents are getting older, we are distracted. Like, we are busy and like sometimes you just want somebody to just take care of it. Like, please take this off my plate. I'm so happy that you're going to handle it for me. And let me, it does alleviate a little bit of stress to have somebody else kind of come in and step in and help you out. So, if you are listening to this podcast, likely you are interested in hormones. You're probably going through midlife, where you're maybe 35 and up, and you're curious about hormones. But also, we're getting to that age where just by the mere fact of living older, we are going to be exposed to a lot more stressors. I say this all the time. I'm like, you have the luxury of going through menopause, like or perimenopause, because for a long time we did not live as long as we have, and so we're going to be exposed to changing relationships. We're going to be exposed to parents getting older, our kids leaving the nest, and now we have stressors, our changing body, our hormones. And it's very easy when we're overwhelmed with the stress of caring for a very sick loved one to kind of bring people in, but you want to do so, and you're probably going to help us later on with that, but to be able to handle it well. And I love that you're like the decision to forgive, but also I think and tell me if I'm wrong, but how about forgiving ourselves? Like, I got to forgive myself for needing the help, like instead of being like, I should have been more aware, been more on it, that kind of thing.
There was a point, I think, in like my own sort of grieving process with the financial shame, and I've seen this with my clients, is that when we can't control it, we spend too much time blaming ourselves. And so that's something we have to learn to rewire quickly, in my opinion, because blaming yourself for decisions that have nothing to do with you or were done behind your back isn't something you can control. The only thing you can control is how you feel and what are you going to do in this moment. And I say, like, probably I feel like a lot when I'm on business calls and, having conversations, like when somebody's like, oh, I'm sorry, you had to wait 30 seconds until I picked up on the Zoom. And I was like, I just look at them, I go, it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for, jumping in, but I don't really need an apology for that. And I think that process of I should apologize for my entire behavior all day long really cheapens an apology when you need it. When I said earlier, like, people are like, I don't know, sorry. That's not empathy. And that's something we all really need, especially if we're going through a time that we're like, my hormones are shifting and my money is shifting and my relationships are shifting. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody just provided me some empathy instead of telling me what to do?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And and for everybody who's here, like Jeannie is here. We're going to be talking a lot about money, but this is her story and this is how she got into it. And so we're going to circle back and kind of talk about maybe rewiring. Jeannie gave us a little a teaser there. We are going to talk about rewiring our money mindset and knowing all those juicy things. But as you can tell, like Jeannie, you were talking a lot about mindset, not about like spreadsheets. So let's like dive into that because I love a good Google spreadsheet, like nobody's business. Like I love the data, I love all of that. And there is that mindset issue. And so like I guess my question would to you would be like, how do you know like you might need a coach? I mean, aside from the fact like maybe you've gone through a catastrophic experience like you have. I mean, some people will go through different experiences, obviously. But how do you know, like, maybe you do need a money coach? What's happening?
So great question. So you always know when you probably need to hire a coach is number one, you've tried fixing it on your own and it's not working. Or you've hired other coaches and they didn't do what you were looking for. Money mindset, I often have to remind people, is really just when you're conscious and thinking about money. Money rewiring is actually deeper. This is actually the stuff that we want to take care of even when we're sleeping. And there's yeah, because we're napping or like we're, I don't know, planning our next vacation or something. Because that's the stuff that is healthy and life altering, not just necessarily negative and life altering.
Oh, so good. Yeah. And so when you've been trying, like, what are some common things that maybe some of your clients have tried on their own, or maybe some things that maybe our audience could be experiencing?
So a lot of times what happens is I will decide to spend less, right? That's a very common thing. But people don't pay too much attention to their cash flow. So what I mean is that whether you have a job, so I mean you might get paid every couple of weeks, maybe once a month, every 3, it doesn't matter. Like you have a pretty regular frequency, you know pretty much what you're going to be making. But people don't pay that much attention to their cash flow. Why? Because not everything comes immediately out of the account. Sometimes we do payment plans. Sometimes we do have too many subscriptions. Sometimes we had to go through our savings to pay something that was unexpected. We don't always do that. And we don't always know how to prepare and plan for, like, need to rebuild up some savings. So, what am I willing to maybe, and this is like the automatic contraction that I hear. Well, I won't do this and I won't do that. And I'm going to do this. And I'm sort of like, not everything requires, iron will grips to like save an extra $50.
The white knuckling.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, where are we going with this? But that's when I know somebody has what I call a broken money brain. And the only way to fix that is to basically go like, okay, I've been doing the money mindset thing and it's still not happening. Like I run into people who are manifesting all day long. It's not happening. Why is it not happening? Well, it could be a variety of reasons, but most importantly, you're not thinking in a way that would allow you to accept, awesome stuff coming your way. You're not thinking of things like, when I tell myself I should have done this differently, I could say like a really simple rewiring trick is I could have done this differently. Meaning, if now you know what you know, you would have done it differently. Like I've said many times about my mother's will on estate. I could have done it differently, knowing what I know now, but I would have started 10 years prior. And I would have, hired the attorney myself and I would have, demanded I was number one, even though I didn't even want that at that time. And I would have had to probably move to California where I didn't want to live in order to make sure we could avoid this. Notice how much of this I didn't want to do. So notice how I could have done that if I would have known. But when I look at my choices, I didn't really want to do it anyway. Oh, makes more sense.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up like, um, kind of looking back, looking at your regrets, looking at like maybe I should have done this, I should have done that. But at the same time, you're also saying, women who might need a coach are thinking in the wrong way, but I have a feeling they don't really realize it. Like they don't know, right? They have no idea. And they find themselves like not necessarily able to save the money that they want. Or it's very, I feel like, that whole abundance and manifestation really was very, very popular in the last couple of years, right? And I can imagine like who doesn't want to manifest, right? Like, wouldn't that be awesome? But what you're talking about is it's not even about like looking at you are talking about like what's coming in, but also like what are the other possibilities, right? You're kind of like opening up your mind. Did I get that right?
Yeah. And what I would also say that's so important about like rewiring your money brain and the people that actually show up for money coaching are, Jeannie, I know I make really good money. I think I'm bad with money. My family's bad with money. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do. And then like you look, I don't actually look at their bank statements unless they absolutely want me to, which I don't need to. But I'm like, well, how much are you making a year? What are you spending money on? Because right there, your money values explain why you're not saving as much. It explains why you actually did go for a larger purchase. It explains everything. But when you're in a place of like, I should be living like they did in the 1950s, I'm like, well, we can't go back. And I don't know anybody who's really living in the 1950s with their money because they wouldn't be living in this country. I can tell you that much. It's too much. Like they're like, no. Think
Yeah,
about it. Like,
yeah.
what was it? A hamburger in the 1950s was like what? A quarter maybe? People don't try like the whole meal's like 10, $11 now. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. So, so that to me speaks to people's money story. Like, what are they bringing from their childhood? What are they bringing from you? Even you mentioned it in your. I love what you said in the introduction when you were describing what you went through. You said my mother had her own choices, and you have a very clear definition of what your mother did. Has nothing to do with you. But when we're brought up and we're like, my parents did not talk about money at all. We had no idea. Um, Actually, that's not true. Now that I'm getting like the reminders, I'll tell you a little bit about that. But, just that money story that we carry with us and then our values. What do we value? Right? Like what is that? And so the money story, tell me a little bit about that and how that affects you.
A lot of times people have first memories about money, but they're so embarrassed to share them because they don't really know who's going to listen and not either make fun of them or be like, really, that was the thing, like you went to the store and you wanted to buy more, I don't know, yogurt or toys or something like that, and you were scolded by your mother. Like, do you really want to bring up a shameful and embarrassing conversation like that, even though that might be one of your first memories? No. Right? And then I've met people who can't even remember what they did before age 10 because they have had a lot of trauma. And I say it like a lot more than you would know. And they just don't want to go back because they don't have any other skills except to relive it. That's why they have to move forward. Rewiring is like this weird, funky little, maybe sounds like witchcraft, who knows, to some people, because they're like, that's impossible because they only have the skills to relive. They don't have the skills to like go, okay, let's talk about your safety. Let's talk about where you're at right now. And let's talk about where you'd like to go, as well as, how you're going to handle today. And then it's like, oh, because you spent all this mental and emotional energy about like, I can't relive this. I can't relive this. I can't relive this. And it's like, well, this is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. And I by no means am I a therapist in any way. I'm really rooted in functional medicine and I am a CBT coach. But from what I understand, and you can correct me, obviously, but from what I understand, I love what you just said that when we have these events that happen in our life, and maybe they're not necessarily, they could be covered under a bunch of stuff, a bunch of trauma, or maybe not. Or maybe it's just like, I haven't dealt with it since then. And I've kind of pushed down maybe some money thoughts and money issues. And I didn't really want to like think about it for a long time. And the only way I know how to handle it is that 12-year-old version of myself, is that 10-year-old version of myself. And because we haven't practiced up until now.
Yeah. My experience is when people really pay attention to their money, is they get into a relationship and they start hiding and not wanting to talk about what's going on. And that's like, this is where a lot of times girlfriend, boyfriend, or it doesn't matter, boyfriend, girlfriend, it doesn't matter any of that stuff. But this is what I always find so interesting is that people don't want to talk about, they really don't have that much money in savings. Yeah, they make this kind of money, but yeah, they want to go buy some video games. And, what about the rent? Is all this jazz. Like, and so people are like, but can't you just cover it? Like, and that's a very normal thing for people to say who don't have a rewired money brain. Like they're like, well, like my family always took care of me. I have to call my mom now to have her pay the rent. ugh, and in some families that's acceptable. In others, when somebody is like, nope, everything's hand to mouth, meaning everything I make goes into my mouth and then eventually to clothes or, to my housing, whatever, has a very different answer. They're like, no, you've got to be responsible and accountable. And isn't it amazing how many people get paired up like that? So I find it's when people are in dating relationships that they realize, like, oh, I don't know how to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. It just goes on and on and on.
You and I did have that conversation. You're like, this comes up when women are in the middle of the precipice or like that precipice up there. They're ready to make a change. They're going to be up leveling their career. They're going to be maybe spending more money on certain things, or they're in leaving a relationship or entering a new relationship or things like that. And you and I both agree, like, again, this is like that midlife, what we're all experiencing. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I'm sure, like, I'm going to be babbling for a minute, but um, when women are in midlife, it's like the person who seeks out functional medicine, because as a functional medicine practitioner, nurse, and hormone and metabolism expert, I get women in front of me who have a lot of health issues and they are ready to spend. It's not cheap. And so they're ready to spend the money and they know the value of their dollar and that's what they want to spend it on. Right. Um, and so you're saying, like, as we kind of evolve as humans, these things can crop up and maybe even create some red flags for themselves, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we're talking. Yeah.
I've met couples that will not get married because their partner is literally a financial walking red flag, meaning they love them, but they don't want to share property. They don't want any credit cards in each other's names. And then sometimes they get to the point of like, I'm doing really well with my money. I can take a vacation. They can't. And then they have to make a decision on like, do I want to stay in this relationship or do I just want to go on a vacation or, and I feel like TV sometimes or streaming, gives us all types of like nasty money types who are like, oh, you don't make $500,000 a year in your business, Leslie. What's wrong with you? And it's like, like anybody needs that kind of silly standard because they all walk around in designer clothes that none of these actual actors own.
That's true, right? I want that Prada handbag.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, no, they're giving you an image of a character that could be real, could not be real. But yes, I think people have unrealistic standards sometimes.
Oh, yeah. But I do think you brought up a good point. Financial compatibility is huge. At this stage, you're either at the peak of your game or you're ready to retire. Any woman who's been in healthcare or uh, the C-suite or any sort of executive, any professionals that I've worked with, I mean, these ladies are either still hustling and getting it done, and they've worked hard. Like, you want to work hard and then you want to enjoy your money, but you want to be with somebody who's financially compatible.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's so important. It's so incredibly important. And so, like, and just being in that scenario, like, now you're going to be dating somebody that's going to maybe bring up a red flag if you're not compatible. I would also think also with friends, like, you always go away with friends and it's like you go to the same places and you always have like that group of people and you're all investing in a trip all together. These are like people who you hang with and you want to keep hanging out with. And like, it's really, really important that we're financially compatible in friendships too.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of people out there that do, unfortunately, a little too much financial rescuing. And sometimes it's like, no worries, Leslie, I'll get your meal. I don't want to like poo-poo generosity. You're welcome to do that in any type of relationship. But if the person's like, oh, I didn't, it's on you. You're like, great. And again, we do this in characters like in the movies and like when we stream stuff. And it's funny, but it's not funny in real life if you're the one who's expected to pick up the check all the time.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, so really, really interesting. Like, so we kind of get like that profile of why would you want to hire a money coach or a money mindset person, and what could be some red flags. Did we miss anything? Like, okay, you've got the relationships, we've got financial compatibility.
We didn't talk about money and health.
Yes, of course. That's why we're here also. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
This is always a money block as women. Not always, not every woman has this, but a lot of us have this when we are givers and we want to care. We're like, listen, if you're passionate about this, you want to get better, this is an investment. Because I'm telling you, we tolerate so much pain and discomfort until we can't. And that's the whole point of getting, healthier, is so that we're not walking around with like, I have bad knees, my back hurts, I've got a scorching case of IBS, I've got migraines. And then like I go to the doctor and they're like, "What meds are you on?" I'm not. I don't have any meds. I'm fine. And they're like, "What?" And I go, "Well, I meditate. I do yoga. I try to eat well. I cut toxic people out of my life. I hire people in my business when I need more help. This is what I do." And they just look at you like you're, a foreigner from a strange land, and you're like, "No, American, right up the street."
Well, yeah, I know a little bit about your background though, so I'm sure like you really put a lot of investment in your health, and I think kudos to you for doing that because you were through a very stressful time in your life, and it was like you got to do it. And no, I totally understand what you're saying about like the mindset of the person who knows that what they invest in, they're gonna get their money back on it. That's a totally different that's like, something that we talk a lot about in coaching, but also I think in, having trusting yourself to do the actions necessary to get it. There's a lot of people that know what to do, have a little bit of difficulty getting it done. That's a different type of person that might need a little bit of accountability. There's another type of person that has no idea what to do. They're, like, in over their head with all of their symptoms, and that's when you wanna seek out a functional medicine practitioner or somebody who can help you with your overall symptoms because you've tried everything. I have a client right now, tried everything, and literally we figured it out.
So that's a worthy investment when you don't even know what
Worthy
it
investment.
is.
Mhm.
I guess the same thing with money. I don't understand why this is happening. There's an answer.
Right, and then there's, like, the other type of picture of somebody who's like, "You know what? I know what to do, just tell me what to do." Self-starter, self-learner. That's maybe not the right person to seek out. But my point is, is that any sort of investment that you make in your life right now, this is our window of health as we're getting up to that, menopausal transition. That is actually the way you have lived your life up until then is how you're going to go through menopause. Like all the symptoms that you've had, it is likely a reflection of how healthy you are, in other words. And that kind of stinks, right? But we have this opportunity now, and they literally call it the window of health, where you can now start making the changes and set yourself up for success for the next, 20, 30, 40 years. Give yourself that shift so that you can actually put a dent. I won't promise reversing disease, but you will be able to manage symptoms and understand where they're coming from, or even if it's like, so I have a client who is literally, it's a genetic profile. It's a genetic problem where she cannot clear histamine. And that's so under the radar. Like, do you want to live with this for the rest of your life and just be like, well, I don't know what's causing it. This is just the way I am. Or do you want to like make a little bit of an investment? And it's not just money. Investment is like, we're not talking just money. It's time, it's attention, it's all those things like that you want to invest in your health right now. What are your takeaways from that?
So, like, my takeaways are that when people wake up and they realize that their life that they have been living, like, sometimes it doesn't matter what the birthday is, but sometimes people wake up, they're like, "Did you know, Leslie, I am blah, blah years old, and I realize that I have to do," and it's like, that's all an internal conversation that people have. But if that number motivates you, that's great. Like, I just had somebody say to me the other day, like, "Oh, I am 45 and I decided I'm going to do this now." And it's such a wake up call. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." I don't even think that way anymore. I'm just like, oh, I'm alive. Best days are yet to come. I'm going to keep going. Because I don't want to sit around and obsess over age, which I think a lot of it is marketing anyway. It's not necessarily all based in science, medically speaking. And there is an enormous amount of misinformation and disinformation on the internet if you don't know what you're looking at. And anecdotal evidence is crazy. And this is a new money trend. And that is they're using what they call UGC, user generated content that is now AI generated. So it's
Oh.
videos giving testimonials that are not real for products and services.
Oh, that's one of the dangers of AI.
Yeah, and it's guess where it's going? I'm gonna sell you this nutritional supplement. Well, you don't know what you're eating or ingesting if you
Mm-mm,
don't know.
mm-mm.
And it's like, I mean, I've met people who are like, I want to look younger. Okay, great. Younger is great, depending on whatever it is that you want to do. And I don't want surgery. Okay, gotcha. But I want to have a clean life. Great. So then I bought this really popular product off of whatever YouTube, and then they start having some signs or symptoms, and it's not necessarily outright toxicity, meaning oh my God, you're sick, but you know it can affect you in all ways. And I feel so silly sometimes saying this, but I'm like, you realize herbs can kill you. Certain
Oh,
combinations, certain
100%.
potency can kill you.
100%.
But how many people have I heard walk around like herbs are natural, man? They're fine. And I'm like, for who? And we don't even know.
Yeah, and, like, I think that that's, like, the desire, and it's but, like, menopause is so hot, hormones are so hot right now, and, like, we are getting so much information off the internet. You can go on TikTok, you can go on Instagram and get all sorts of information about your what supplements you should take, how much protein you should be having, and all this stuff, but it's not vetted, it's not real, it's like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall. You don't wanna have these, you don't wanna be having ashwagandha, by the way, if you're on thyroid medication. Nobody tells you that in a post. Nobody's going to tell you. So we have all these like armchair experts out there, and it could be damaging your health in the long run. And I don't like to be like a fear monger in any way, but I'm like, if we're going to read an article, my articles that I read have actual PubMed links. Like we're going to be getting the right information that's tested, science backed, not by some influencer who's got the opinion, right? It's like we gotta start thinking about that. And you're right. I think a lot of women are curious, I guess hormone curious or supplement curious, and trying things on their own. Like I'm not gonna lie, I did that. I was like, oh, maybe I should take that. Maybe I should take that. But the reality is, it can be harmful. I'm going to tell you, when I renewed, I'm obviously a nurse, and I renewed my nursing license because in North Carolina, after 5 years, you have to go back. Um, and I was on the telemetry floor, and I would see young people, young, on heart monitors, on all sorts of things. And that's like right around the time where I was like, oh my God, like I was in functional medicine training. And you just saw like years and years and years of nutritional decisions that went bad. And then like the tray would come up and we'd give the diabetic like the french fries and the hamburger. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's so
"Oh
helpful.
my God." So like, you see it. You see the medical downstream effects of years and years and years of poor nutritional decisions. And like if you make that investment now down the road, you won't have the um, very costly financial decisions. Do you come across things like that?
Yes. So one of the secrets to retirement, it's not about how much money you have, it's about your health. And I'll explain. So right now, there's a lot of upheaval, rightfully so. People are very concerned about their Social Security, about their Medicare, about their Medicaid, and guess how you pay for your medication. So depending on who's in power or what goes on in Congress, nobody really knows. Will you have the money or benefits to pay for your medication? I don't know. And I'm just talking about meds. And as you get older, we have more medical interventions to keep you alive. This is not a bad thing. This is just what it is. But if you can't afford the medication, you can't afford the procedures, guess what's going to happen? You're going to spend a lot of money if you fall. You're going to spend a lot more money if you cannot get back up. And so I think people just assume like that's going to happen when I'm 80, or it could happen when you're 60. Or it could happen when you're 55. Like, we don't really know this unless you decide to take some active changes. Like, I just had a conversation today with somebody about, like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. And, she said, I think I'm going to die here, meaning her home. And I was like, what a way to start a conversation, but okay. And I just kind of looked at her. I said, okay, well, I'm glad that you feel really comfortable with all that. Are you aware of and I said, are you aware of the resources around you? Because she's kind of out in the country in middle America. And she's like, yep, I've got this, I've got that. I said, great. Make sure you make your house accessible for a medical bed, because even the electrical, because if, once you get to those end stages, that the bed's got to work in your home. If you can't make it to a hospital, the retirement living is either too expensive or they have no room at the end for you. So there's a lot that goes into it. So when you invest sooner, it's actually going to save you money down the road, when it could be like out of control. But I've met many people who are like, I'm just going to do what's covered under my insurance, because if they do the mediocre thing, it's fine. But the people who come are the ones who are like, mediocre A is not good enough, and B, it's not working. I need more help. I need more specific help. I need to know, because the only reason that people buy a bunch of stuff off the internet and don't worry is because they feel bad about themselves, and they're not the only reason, but it's like often the primary driver. I don't feel good about the way I look and the way I feel. So maybe if I took this ashwagandha and then colostrum mixture along with my mushroom coffee, I'll be fabulous. I'm just going to eat a bunch of mushrooms. I'll be great. And it's like, well, maybe.
Yeah, we are not tied into our future self. We are not looking out for that future self, that Leslie Duffy 2.0, the 65-year-old Leslie Duffy, the 75-year-old Leslie Duffy. We have a big disconnect between our future self. And that is where we have that problem. It's like we're living in the moment, we're living in the now. I'm going to go get a hamburger, which I love, by the way. Love a good hamburger and a
Who doesn't?
cheeseburger. But like, we're not thinking about those decisions that we're making now. And I can imagine that that's a financial thing too, right? Because I'm talking about health, and you're talking about the finances. But there's that like that relationship with your future self. We never really had to do it because we didn't really live this long. But the one thing I want to say is, for people who are listening, if you're listening and you're like, you can relate to, yeah, I have been like kind of buying supplements off of Instagram. Do not worry. Please do not think that this is a bad thing. It is, in fact, I think it's actually a good thing in your mindset, because it shows a growth mindset. It shows that you know that there's something out there that can help you, but you just don't know what yet. So don't beat yourself up over stuff like that. Like, that's totally okay. It's like we want to just kind of drive it in the right direction and be educated about the decisions and the things that you put in your mouth. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So please don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, and I make my own mushroom coffee. So I'm like, I'm that kind of lady. I was like, oh, I figured it out. Talked to my doctor. I said, I'd like to take the following mushrooms. What do you think? They're like, that's great. Do that, unless you're having a problem. And they gave me the symptoms to look for, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like I'm this close to venturing into making sourdough bread. I'm like, I'm like so close. I'm so close. Give a lady who's driving her car right now and listening to our conversation, tell me some things that would kind of shift her into that. We're going to start to rewire the money mindset. What can you do to get there?
So one of the things that I like to do first, and I mentioned this earlier, was to really talk about your financial values. What you spend, save, and invest in is all about values. What you communicate is all about a value. What partner you choose and the money conversations you have or don't have are all about your values. So one of the things that I like people to do is take a look at what you're spending. So it could be a bank account, credit card, whatever, and just look for the last, say, 30 to 90 days. If you need a little bit more data, that's fine. And then how did you feel about each transaction? Because a lot of times we are just mindless, or we're totally stressed out. Got to pay this bill. So you pay it and you don't feel good about yourself. Okay, how's this working for your debt? How's this working for you and that wonderful growth mindset? It's not. It just keeps repeating a pattern of, I don't really like that my money still keeps me in the same place. And it's like, well, whoa. Your values are reflected here. If you wish to change them, meaning, the money, not necessarily your values, there's something that needs to change inside of you, because the minute you change, then all of a sudden the money changes.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think a lot of people who maybe are not used to doing mindset work and understanding the energetics of things is like, um, and by no means am I like your go-to, like, she's doing it perfectly, not in any way, but what I'm just saying is, like, when I'm paying a bill, I'm like, "Oh, I'm so happy to have the money I am really happy that I'm like, "Here, take my money. Take it. Like, here you go. Like, how can I pay you? Because I love my garden looking nice."
Yeah.
Or, like, electricity, thank you. Internet, thank you. So that energetics, and it does, like, permeate, as you said, into everything else. And, how can you let that permeate into your real life?
So if you think of making money your new best friend, and I don't mean like you get to spend with it only when you're happy or to make you happy, because some people use friends like that. But you really want to make it a friend that you check in on every day. It's a friend that you want to enjoy having a money conversation. It's a friend that you're like, I want to get curious when I notice that we're having the slump instead of just getting to a place of frustration and irritation. I want to, get to my money best friend here and ask them like, hey, what is it that you need? Because I've been so busy, self-absorbed about me. What do you need? What a wonderful, good friend you can be. And some people are like, you should treat your money like a lover. And I'm like, a lot of people are hot and cold with their lovers. So I would say best friend. I think it's a little long term, that's going to get you further. But that's just me.
Okay. Okay, that's hilarious. It's funny. I like what you said because I love books like the Jen Shintaro has like the best book on money. She's so amazing. And it is a relationship. It's like when we want to attract more money in our lives, you want to open it with open arms. And I'm gonna ask for a friend. How do you know if you have money blocks? Asking for a friend.
Yeah. So money blocks can look very sneaky, like, oh, but don't you understand you need to spend money on your health? And I say, how about you just change the word to you're investing? You're not just throwing money at the wall hoping it works out. So that's one little thing. But, for people who have money blocks, they know they have them, whatever that looks like. The question I always have for them: are you willing to change your relationship to whatever the block is? So if it's scarcity, if it's competition, if it's comparison, you're always comparing yourself to these awful Joneses that make our lives a living hell. We can never keep up with them. Or is it that you are just like, I just want to feel good with my money and make it work for me and not get stuck in FOMO? Oh my goodness. Ooh, that's such an easy ask, and that can be done.
Yeah, I actually worked with somebody who said to me, even like more on that vein. I like what you said. But she said to me in a different shape, she's like, your abundance is a reflection of, and I don't want to go there, but like, I'd love to hear what your opinion is of your spiritual feeling about money.
Yes and no. It depends on your belief system. And I always like to share this with people. This is why I love talking about your money brain. It is independent of religion unless you want to put faith and religion in there. Because there are plenty of people out there that have been horribly abused, spiritually abused with their money, who do not want to hear another word about Jesus, God, or anything. And I really respect that. But the people who are faith driven, I love you too, by the way. But the people who are faith driven, who are like, I'm trying to have this relationship with God, and I'll just tell you, it's two things. You need two things in order for this to work. You need to be alert, meaning you are listening to God. You're paying attention if there's a sign. You're not calling your, six other friends. Do you think this is a sign? You know it's a sign because you have faith. And then you're going to relax. Because if God has got you, then what the heck are you complaining about, right? That's part of the problem, is that people, swear their faith at a level, but they really live in a dualistic life, which is, I really want God to lead me, but he's not here or she's not here. So I better hurry up and jump in and then screw it up and then complain that God didn't help me, or pray more, because that's my cycle of how money works, which I have seen that happen in families. Like, I unfortunately had a conversation with somebody who they love the experience of faith and action, but they don't necessarily know how to create that for themselves. And so, and they're a minister. I'm like, you have money problems as a minister? What's going on? Because you would think, well, the minister should be fine, right? Leslie, you should be fine, or she should be fine. No, we all have money brains. If it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
wired that you can receive and give in the same day or at the same time, because that's very normal. A lot of people are like, I just want all the money and then I can go do what I want with it. Well, that's not really receiving and giving. That's control. And that's why that's not working for you.
Yeah, yeah. I like that because and what you said your relationship to your block. And I can relate to that on a different level, and I'll just share a little bit about that. And then I'm going to ask you another question. I'm like, I literally, we could talk forever. And by the way, if you are excited to have Jeannie on, because I certainly am, well, she's going to come back. So don't, hang tight, hang tight. She's actually coming back. We're going to talk more.
Yay, I'm so excited.
And I'll just give you my experience with that. So I have to be on social media, right? And like as a Gen Xer, I'm like, oh, I hate social media. I don't want to put my face on social media. Like this is a big deal for me, like to be on freaking YouTube. I'm like, oh my God. And I kept having this idea that I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I had so much resistance to it. And I think it was like a business coach was like, we're going to call it like money making hour. And I was like, and that's where you come in. It's like that to me, I must have a block because I was like, I just kind of, I didn't like how that felt. And instead, what I did was I kind of like dove in and I was like, why am I feeling this? Like, what is that? And it's to me, it almost felt like I'm taking advantage of people or using social media in a way that is not clean for me. So instead, what I what I really love doing is connecting with people. I love talking to people like you and anybody else who comes on the podcast. I love it. I love learning about people's stories. And instead, I changed my perspective and I started thinking of it as service hour, like servicing. How can I help you? Like, how can that aligns with my values. That is like, I have so much information. I want to share it with people as I am a business. I am making money. We are making money, right? How do I shift that into, and that was just like taking that pause into like, all right, well, what I really want to do is help people. And I can still help people by supporting them on social media, by acknowledging how they feel, acknowledging like, yeah, this kind of sucks sometimes. And here's how we can change that. So that's interesting in that how you kind of phrased it, that relationship to your block, like what is happening there and how can you look at it like in a different way?
So I just wanted to comment. This is very common. Again, now that we're getting more and more AI, like what is real, what is not. And this might spook some people, but if you've lived in a world that has a lot of automation or there's just a lot of electronic, like, maybe the truth isn't as important to you as it is to somebody who's like, wait, getting manipulated can be a bad thing. I feel like, again, that is, your own evolution. You choose truth or you don't. But one of the things that really spoke to me about getting on social media as a business owner wasn't about how I looked, but it was very much about my message. And so I feel like in the sea of a lot of mediocrity and a lot of propaganda, it can be scary to want to deliver and speak the truth. One of the best phrases I've heard is like, do you know how to penetrate the social media algorithm in a way that feels good to you? And I was like, ooh, I don't. I know. And believe me, when I was doing my social media before I had a business, it was stupid and
It
silly.
sounds dirty.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, see, you made it very sexual. But it's true. The things that pop or go viral penetrate the algorithm when they technically wouldn't. And so, I mean, it's just like somebody mentioned a comment the other day on LinkedIn. They're like, "Oh, ChatGPT is down. Can everyone tell?" Because we weren't getting like the same flood or volume of post. And I was like, "Yeah," I didn't really care
Oh
because
wow.
I'm choosing to share my gifts and talents in a way that feels good to me. I'm willing to talk to people, actual people, but I'm also willing to hold the boundary of like, this feels like too much inauthenticity for me. And that's like a line that I won't draw, that I'm going to cross it. Like, oh, I'll keep moving the world. Nope.
Other than like, all right, now your bank account is flushed. How do you like, there's other
So what
ways to
is the
measure
sign of
abundance.
financial success? It sounds like what you're
Yes,
asking. What is the
exactly. Other
sign of
than like,
financial
yes.
success? The sign of financial success for my clients and for myself is that you are no longer in a place of living in this silly little duality. And anytime you catch yourself of like, oh no, the world is going to end, meaning your left brain is speaking more than your right brain. And I'm talking just emotional and behavioral rewire, not the whole actual medical expertise of the brain. So roughly the left side is all about data and logic, but then it's also can be very much about fear and survival versus the right side. It's about opportunities. It's about empathy. It's about navigating. Like you just said, what am I going to be looking at? The 65-year-old Leslie or what the 75-year-old? That's all navigation. But it's also activating it when you absolutely need to be like, I need to make a money decision now. This is how you do it. So I feel like what financial success is that you are feeling as integrated as you possibly can with your left and right brains. Your sleep is good, your cash flow makes sense, you feel comfortable taking a vacation or time off or investing in something a little bit larger. You are not sit there and worried every day or worried and then want to avoid it, which will cost you later in the long run. You go, you know what, I get it. This is what it is. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, if there's a real money problem, you know how to pivot or move away or get help. You know how to do these things because you don't have to do it all on your own, but you do need to have enough wisdom to go, do I need an expert? Do I need to, go talk to, I don't know, somebody where I like to think of in your power posse, somebody who's also got a really healthy money mindset, who understands you, who will listen, not sit there and tell you what to do. That's a very different experience. That's the sign of success. Like many times when I say to people, who have lost family members, I get it myself, losing both my parents. But I say, the sign of success, like in my parents' lives, is that they were loved, plain and simple.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there was a lot
Yeah.
of hurt and there was a lot of drama, sure. But again, those were not all my choices. And, there's a lot of other reasons that stuff happened. But a sign of success is that you were loved and you were able to return that love.
Y'all, if you are listening to this, that is a total mic drop. Like, this is what we're hearing. We're hearing this from like this really grounded money mindset person because it's not just about the Benjamins. It is about your relationship with money, how you feel about it. It's having a grounded feeling. And what is that buying you? Listen, I'm not going to lie. Like, having money is wonderful. It buys you freedom. It buys you a lot of stuff. But at the end, you're not taking it with you. Like, you leave a legacy with your family and your loved ones. And that is like, I talk a lot about that with my clients who come to me. I'm like, what do you want to be when you, like, what's that 80-year-old version of you doing? She walking down the beach with her family, holding hands with her grandchild and having fun, going on a hike. Like, that's the version of you that is and again, it is my opinion and probably your opinion too. Like, this is what we consider like good. But like, as far as financial alignment, this is amazing. I love what you just said. Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank Jeannie, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed that conversation because I'm like, that just flew. Jeannie, thank you so much for coming here today. And I really want to thank you for visiting the Hormone Shift Show. And thank you, listeners, for your support.
I just want to say if people want to reach out to me, I have a free money type quiz, and the link will be in the show notes.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, please, I encourage you to do that and keep Jeannie in your inbox because she is a gem. And the other thing, is there any final words that you would like to say to the audience, somebody who's listening?
Yeah, I would say difficulties and obstacles are actually pretty normal in our life. And so when you take the time to actually get curious and want to find out a better way to live, better way to have fun, a better way to feel powerful, then it never fails. The opportunities arise. You're listening to Leslie's podcast. There are no sort of like random moments. There's a reason you're here. And so there's a reason you're listening. And so you can continue to follow these breadcrumbs, or you can be like, I don't know. But I think you're gonna say, like, I think this is important.
Yeah, so good. All right. Well, thank you, Jeannie. And thank you, everybody, for listening.